Okay, so I guess first we can start with you giving like a quick intro. I kind of already shouted you out on my stories, but we can include it here too.
So I right now I'm at the criminal defense firm. I think I've been there now for like 3 weeks, but before that I was doing family law while I was waiting for bar results. And I kind of knew that I wasn't gonna stay there very long, but it was more like I'm gonna try it out and just kind of keep that ball rolling with, getting like legal writing experience. But I always knew like criminal defense was the way that I wanted to go. So yeah, that's what I've been doing now. And I do plan on keep, pursuing that long term.
Yeah, I can relate to that. um, were you working when you took the bar?
No, so the first time I was completely off. I was off both times. Um, but then I went back to work. The first time I think I took like 2 weeks off after the bar, and then I went back to work after. And then the second time I went back to work like the next day.
That's crazy. You took the bar last July. It was your
Mhm.
first, and then the second time was this past February, correct?
Yes.
I know you already told me, but like, what would you say was the biggest difference in terms of like your mindset or if there was any difference from like the first time you took the exam to the second time?
Well, for me, the biggest difference was that I hired a tutor the second
Mm-hmm.
time, which I did not the first time. First time was like whatever the school gave me like free Themis, so I used Themis. And the second time I used a tutor. Now, what I've heard, like a lot of people are like, well, we can't afford to hire a tutor. I couldn't afford to hire a tutor. I just felt like I had no choice. So with the tutor, what he did different, besides like, yeah, he's knowledgeable, is that he was a former bar grader.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of told me like, look, this is a test. You got to start thinking about it like you're a bar grader. What do you think they want to see? Not like you're a Themis instructor or not like you're a law school professor, because that's
Mm-hmm.
totally different. So I think for like people who are repeat takers, even if you can't afford to hire a tutor, I would say definitely have like the free consultation from the tutor, because a lot of them will give you like a whole hour or 30 minutes on the phone and just kind of give you like this is what I have to offer you. And that alone is huge advice, because they'll walk you through like, hey, you got to go through the state bar website and look at the different essays. And
Mm-hmm.
you hear this from professors and from other students taking the bar, but something about this guy, like he walk you through everything. Like, this is what I'm gonna do. You're gonna have your breaks. You're gonna treat law. He called it law analysis, law expression, and law knowledge. Those were like the three
That's so
things.
interesting.
Yeah, he's like, those three things are the three things that you need to pass a bar, and that's it. Like, if you have those three things, you're gonna pass.
What
And I'm
was
like,
it?
oh,
Law expression,
law
law.
expression, law analysis, and law knowledge.
That's so interesting.
So you
Do you?
have to
Go ahead.
you have to be able to, like with Themis, all I had was a law knowledge. I was
Yeah.
like, that's all I need to know. I need to memorize all the black letter law and I'm gonna pass. And I did that, but I didn't pass because I
Mm-hmm.
was missing the other two. And with expression, it's like you have to be able to, it's like issue spotting. You have to be able to distinguish what like one specific area of questioning of law looks like versus another one. Like, are they quizzing you on conspiracy, or are they quizzing you on like, I don't know, homicide? Like, you have to be able to distinguish them. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other one is the analysis, because you have to be able to analyze in your IRAC.
Mm-hmm.
And so those three things were huge. And it has the same percent, like 33%, 33, 33. So for me, that conversation alone with a tutor opened up my eyes a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like a much more like practical approach to the
Yeah.
exam. When you say that you were missing that from the first time, like how did you come to that conclusion? Like how did you come to the conclusion of like this is what I'm missing or this is why I need a tutor? Um, I don't know if that has the same answer or different answers.
Yeah. I think I realized because like me and my friend were both using Themis when we sat for it the first time, and she passed and I didn't. And I was like, but we use the same program. We had the same number of MBEs. Like, I think I did over 1900 and she also did like 18 or something. And my average on MBEs was like 57 and her average was like 58. So I was like, we had pretty much the same numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Why did she pass and I did not? And we put in the same amount of hours, like no days off, all of that. And so I realized if I already did everything, like I did poster boards, I did note cards, I did everything. And if that was not enough, then I'm never going to pass. That was my, like, when I saw that fail after the first time, I figured, okay, like, this is bullshit. If I did everything on the book and I still did not pass, then there's something wrong about, it's not that I'm not understanding the law, because I knew it. I did the work and everything that I had to do it. You know, we both, me and my friend, had the same numbers. So I'm like, why did she pass? It's because she was missing something, or she had something that I was missing. And that's when I realized somebody's got to sit me down and tell me what am I missing, because I'm not seeing it. So I
Mm-hmm.
knew I had to get like somebody else involved. And that's really hard to do when you buy a program like Themis or Barbary, because they're not gonna like talk to you one-on-one, you know? And when I mean like, again, sit with somebody, I know that like hiring, I have a lot of friends who didn't pass like the first or the second time, and it keeps saying like, talk to a tutor. You don't have to hire them, but just talk to somebody, whether it be a tutor or maybe even a professor in law school or somebody who's done this before, so that you can tell them like, this is what I did, what am I missing? And somebody is
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you like, this is what you need to do. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
you're too blinded that you only see, it's like when you're writing a paper, you keep, staring at it for so long that you can't see your own grammar mistakes.
Yeah.
You need to get a second set of eyes.
Yeah, that's very true. So did you only talk to the tutor or you hired him as well?
I hired him.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking like a rounded number cost of what it cost?
So he had I think like three different programs,
Mm-hmm.
and the cheapest one is the one that I got, was like $4,800.
Mm-hmm.
And the most expensive one was like maybe 7,000 or something. So it was like 48, like 50 something, and then 60 something.
Yeah.
And the only difference was that like each of those programs came with more number of graded essays. So the one that I got, I think came with like 10 graded essays. And then it was like
Mm-hmm.
12 and 14, whatever. But I felt that because there's like 13 subjects I think with the bar. So I figured I don't need every single subject graded. I can do that
Yeah.
myself. Or I feel more comfortable with like contracts. I don't need him to grade me a contract essay. So he
Mm-hmm.
can grade my business one or whatever. So that was good enough for me. Um, but also like I knew that it was an investment, and I knew that it was gonna like financially take a huge toll on me. But at the same time, I was like, I keep spending money on every time I sit for it, paying for it, and like taking time off from work. That's lost income. So all of this took a, effect into me hiring him, because I figure at the end of the day, if I hire somebody who I know can, not that he guaranteed me, but I knew that I was very, very certain that he would help me pass, because he came highly recommended from like the entire public defender's office in
Mm-hmm.
Santa Clara County. He had already helped like three other students that I know. And I'm like, okay, if he helped them, I kind of feel more comfortable hiring him. So
Mm-hmm.
then I hired him.
Yeah, I think that's very like important too, word of mouth when it comes to a big investment, whether it's like LSAT or bar prep
Mhm.
exams, because there's so many options that cost money when it comes to these big exams. And it's very discouraging, like, when you hear like those horror stories of just things going like entirely wrong.
Mm.
And I think it's like what you say is, I'm sure it's going to resonate with many, but when it comes to just the financial hardship, it's so difficult because it is an investment and it's hard to see that when you're, or to trust that when you're struggling financially. But then it's like you said, like eventually, it'll add up to around the same cost, if not more. Like for example, I know for me, I hired a bar prep coach, like mindset coach, but I knew for me most of my blocks was motivation and emotional. And similarly, I was thinking like, well, if I can't get through this, it's going to eventually add up. So I'm definitely going to be asking for the details of this person after this interview, because I think it would be really helpful. I want to really talk about the just the overall effect, the emotions, everything from having not passed on the first try. I feel like it's very common for, especially I feel like Latinas, to have like a lot of pressure on ourselves. We don't want to have to take this test more than once, and there's a lot of fear when you're first sitting for the exam. What if I have to take this again? What was kind of like that process like for you? And, was that still something that you had anxiety about the second time you took it?
I think the first time I kind of had anxiety about like not passing throughout the study period, but not
Mm-hmm.
the day of the exam. And then the second time, it was the opposite. I had no anxiety while I was studying, but I did the day of the exam for like about, I think, the first 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then I controlled myself and I was like, I can't, But the first time I had so much like anxiety and stress with like, I need to pass, I need to pass. It's almost like I didn't allow myself to even like breathe, I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I gotta do it no matter what. I didn't even know how I was gonna do it. I was just like, I gotta do it. And
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't give myself any days off, any breaks. I think I took like maybe at most 3 days off throughout the whole 3 months. And I was not resting, not that I was studying like from 6 to 9 or anything, but I was studying pretty much like 80% of the day and mostly every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it came down to the point of like I would have nightmares about it, like while I was sleeping, and it was nonstop. And then I was going to the gym the first time, and I was like, healthy body, healthy mind, but it didn't work out for some reason. It almost felt like I was trying to be too perfect, and it
Mm-hmm.
made me be not unperfect,
Yeah.
imperfect, And then the second time, it was the opposite. I didn't go to the gym. I was like, Sundays is my day. I don't care if I'm behind, if I'm not behind. I was being more selfish about
Yeah.
me. And I was almost like, screw this test. It let me down before. So I'm not going to give it everything anymore. I'm
Yeah.
going to give it everything I have, not everything plus more, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, yeah, I hired a tutor, but that doesn't mean I was going to pass, it was just like, he's there, he's teaching me things the right way. But also with hiring him, it almost felt like I didn't need to put in the 10-hour days that I did the first time. Because
Mm-hmm.
with Themis, it's like they hit you with like, 3,000 pages of, books and books to read and outlines. And with him, it's like, let's cut to the chase. This is what you need to know. And my book was like this small,
Mm-hmm.
my black letter book, like super tiny. And it was like, read that and like look at the outline, do your MBEs, do your essays, do your PTs, and you'll be good. It was just like bullet point outline. This is the most frequently tested things that you need to know, and that's it. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to do the work of like searching through what was important and what wasn't. He did it for me, you
Yeah.
know. So that's why I felt like I can have Sundays off and have shorter days. So I released my anxiety in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day of the test, I guess that's when it hit me the second time. Like, holy shit, here I am again. I don't want to be. It almost had like I had a moment when I was taking the test the second time where I like relived opening up my failing results the first time and how it felt to fail and to like carry that, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't just fail, like you fail and then you carry that for another 3 months and for even longer than that, because you're studying thinking, oh, I failed before, and then you're waiting for results thinking, well, I'm not going to pass because I failed. So I was carrying all that with me, and the day of the bar exam, it was there like in the back of my head, like, holy crap, I don't want to have that feeling again 3 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, screw that. This time it was like I sat there and I was like, this is a fight for my life. Like, I'm not gonna do what I did last time. Last time I almost was too naive and I trusted the test. Like oh, it's okay, I put in the work, I put in the time, they're not gonna let me down. Like somehow I thought that the bar exam graders were gonna know that I put in the time and the work and that they were gonna pass me. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, like that's not equivalent of you passing. Putting
Mhm.
it, it's not like going to the gym where it's like, well, as long as I go every day,
Yeah.
then I'll lose weight. It doesn't work like that. So
Yeah.
so I figured you gotta work smart, you know.
So, like, what would you say to somebody that's studying for it now, that's at the halfway point, and that person is terrified of failing and they don't know how to best move forward?
I would say even if you're at the point right now where it's like you're 3 weeks, 2 weeks out, and even if you were like you fell off the boat for a minute and you were like, oh, I start slacking off and I'm so behind and I'm not ready for it. There's still time. And people
Mhm.
used to say this to me before, like, oh, there's still time. And I'm like, dude, there is no time. I will
Mhm.
never catch up. But there is. You have to be smart about it. Like for me, the last 2 weeks of like the second time, I went and did, and I don't like I don't want to say like, oh, you should do this because you should always, CYA. But what I did, I was like, I'm gonna like play it smart. So I went on Cal Bible and I looked up at the five most, or like the next set that's gonna get tested for the essays. They do like a
Mhm.
statistical pool of the next five that are gonna get tested. And my friend had told me about it, and he's like, well, keep in mind they're not always accurate. They do have like a 60 to 80% rate of like guessing right. So I
Mhm.
figured, okay, I'm gonna go there, and I got the five that they were gonna test, and then I figured I'm gonna review all 13 subjects, but in order of like descending. So the last three
Yeah.
or five that I study are gonna be those five that Kabai was telling me that is gonna get tested.
Mhm.
So I did that, and then I would do like if contract was like my best subject, I would start by reviewing it for like a day because I know I don't need that much on it. And then if like evidence was like a heavy one and I knew that it's gonna get, or not knew, but I felt that it was gonna get tested, I will go on the State Bar website and I read every single essay
Yeah.
in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And by read, I don't mean like actually sit there and read everything word for word, but I was like, okay, what kind of questions do they ask? Okay,
Yeah.
it seems like they always ask this type or this type. And kind of make like an Excel spreadsheet or on a piece of paper, like for
Mhm.
evidence. They always ask this, or that. I'm gonna
Mhm.
get one of these for sure. How am I gonna answer it? Oh, okay, they answered it this way. Sometimes it wouldn't even make sense to me. I was like, really? That's not how I
Yeah.
would answer it. But they wanted it like that, so that's what
Yeah.
I would answer.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
what I
so
did.
crazy because that's exactly what I did with specifically community property.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you agree that most of it, especially like in the second half of studying, involves a lot of strategic
Hmm.
decisions?
Yes, a
Yeah.
lot. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. I hear a lot and like repeatedly this big hesitation. And I mean, I was there too, and I could relate to that, but it's really big resistance and hesitation to moving away from bar prep programs, even though they feel like they should. The focus is more on I need to like finish this program. I'm behind on this program. I need to do all of these things, but they're not feeling like they're retaining anything. I mean, I'm trying to see how I can word the question, but like, do you think that had you not gone through this first, or had you not gone through the experience of, not passing the bar the first time, that you would have had the same kind of confidence to make the decisions you made in the second time? Like, or do you think that experience was necessary?
Um, I think somebody asked me this like during an interview. They were like, "Oh, so how did it change you like not passing the first time in any way?" And then I think to me, it almost felt like I kind of had to, so I
Hmm.
can understand that like sometimes you're really sure. You're like, "Oh, I got this. I've done it before." Like people have told me like, "Oh, the bar is hard." I got a friend
Hmm.
who had taken it 3 times. He's like, "It's hard. Like it's nothing like any other test you've taken." And I was like, "Yeah, I get that." But that's people that have issues with like putting in the time. I don't have an issue with that. So I figured I'm gonna be okay when it comes to that.
Hmm.
I'm gonna do well. But it wasn't about checking the box. And Themis and programs like that make you think so long as you check the box, you're gonna pass. They even give you statistics on like if you complete 75%, there's like 80% chance you're gonna pass. And I was aiming for the number. Like every day I would go in there and was like, did it go up? Did it go up?
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't worried about my right answers going up. I was more worried about my percentage of completion for the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so focused on that I was not focused on am I actually doing what I need to do, which is like my tutor said, the 3 expression, analysis, and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I had to do that so that I can stop feeling so, it was like a blinded hope that or like a false, it was false that this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
about so long as you do Themis and you complete it, you're gonna pass. It was
Yeah.
false.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very similar with Barbary, and like sometimes the goal isn't to complete this bar program, it's to pass the bar exam. Just because you completed or get however much percentage done, and that doesn't guarantee that you're gonna pass the test. And I feel like the bar prep programs, they give you so much material that you feel like you have to go through all of it, and there's not really much room for you to make it your own, or make your own decisions like they're telling you what to do.
Mhm.
When it comes to like not having passed the bar, what's something that you can say to someone that is just feeling like really discouraged because they're taking this test again? Do you have any like comforting words? Do you have any words, kind of pull somebody out of like a feeling really hopeless and helpless and
I think
afraid?
um like at the time I was like, oh, this is the end of the road. Like
Mhm.
it feels like that. It really feels like you've suddenly become another statistic that tells you like you're not gonna pass. Like it already is a statistic that, you know, like 50%, or I don't know what the number is, depending on the test that you take, don't pass. So you feel like, okay, well, that's it. Like I've become a number now. And I think every time that you sit for it, your number's lower. Like your chance of passing gets lower and lower and lower. So I was like, it almost felt like I was in this war, but like I had lost my leg. And
Mhm.
now it's like, well, how am I gonna pass if I don't have a leg? The first time I had a full body, now I'm missing a leg. But then now looking back, I'm like, the time that it took from the moment that I failed to the moment that I passed was like 5 months or something, 5, 6 months, and it flew by so quickly. Now, had I known that you can turn your life around 180 in a matter of 6 months, had I
Mhm.
known that then, I would have probably stopped crying in like 30 minutes.
Mhm.
But I cried for like a week because I felt like there's no way out of this, like I'm down so low that I will never reach the top.
Mhm.
But in a matter of 6 months, I turned it around. So there is a way out. And even though there's numbers that tell you you can't, there is. So
Yeah.
long as you find what works for you.
Yeah. That's very inspiring. I know there's like a lot of pressure coming out of law school to also take the exam, and I know for you, like, it wasn't an issue, like you said, putting in the time. But do you think you could have benefited off some time in between law school and taking the bar exam, or do you think that wouldn't have really changed things for you?
If I think it was like that the first semester after COVID where they switched the exam from July to October
Hmm.
because of COVID, I feel like that's a good time range. Because when you come out of law school in May, after like having a bunch of finals, and then you're supposed to study right around May, it's like you don't have a break. You go straight
Hmm.
into studying, and then it almost like, I don't know if I was like depressed or something, but it was weird because you're kind of at a high and a low, because one
Hmm.
day you're graduating, you're like, yay, I have a Juris Doctorate now, and life is all good. And then the next day, literally the next day after graduation, you're right back to where you were a week ago, with just studying for the bar
Hmm.
and not going anywhere. So it's like mind fucking in a way, because someone's telling you like, congratulations, good job, you're one step closer, but then they're throwing you to the fire and you're
Yeah.
like, okay. So your mind can't, like, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I feel like your mind can't switch that quickly,
Mhm.
from one high to another low. And that takes an impact on like how you progress throughout your weeks of studying.
Mhm.
So my second time, I had like between November when I got my results to I think I started studying December 19th. So I had like 4 weeks
Mhm.
to like prepare mentally. Like, okay, I'm gonna start doing this thing, I know how it went the first time, to just talk to myself. And the first time you really don't. Like, yeah, you know that you're gonna take this test, but you're so busy with law school that you don't have the time to actually sit there and like plan things out, like
Mhm.
how your days are gonna fly and everything. So not that I not that I would say it benefited me. Like if I could go back and do it again, I think I would still take it in July because
Mhm.
it feels like you are losing a lot of time between July and February. But it almost felt like I had to do it.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I spent more money. Yeah, I wasted like 3 months taking it twice, the July bar. But it almost felt like I had to do that because if I was taking it for the first time in February, I feel like I wouldn't have like approached it the same way, even with a
Mhm.
tutor. Even if I had, even if I had taken it the first time in February and hired a tutor, I probably would have been the same Jackie I was before, which is,
Mhm.
oh, I hired a tutor. So long as I do what he says, check all the boxes, I'll be fine.
Mhm.
But it was not about that.
Yeah.
It was like a whole different mindset that you only get after you fail.
I'm sure it's like hard for some people to also embrace that mindset. I know like for me, I could relate to I went straight from law school and I started studying for the February exam and I was really burnt out. I was only studying for 4 weeks and I was really like crushed when I had to postpone it because I felt like, I just have to keep going. This is how it goes and I don't want to waste time. Like I not gone through those 4 weeks, I was putting in like 8-10 hour days and kind of like you said, just, doing everything right, but not really. I wouldn't have approached the time in July, like so intentionally. I know you said this time around you took Sundays off. So did you set that like before starting your studying the second time around?
My tutor gave me Sundays off.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. You want me to jump, I'll jump. Whatever
Yeah.
you want. And he's like, you're gonna have Sundays off. I'm like, okay, you ordered it.
Yeah. Did you like prepare for it differently though?
At first, I know they say like don't reinvent the wheel because it's gonna take you that much longer. Like however you were studying for law school, you should keep studying like that. And I think maybe that's how I went wrong because the first time I started doing like the poster boards and the flashcards, and those never worked for me. Never.
Mm,
But I heard that it worked for people. And I was like, well, maybe it worked for me. But what was happening was I was spending way too much time writing out flashcards and writing out poster boards. Like a whole day will be gone of me making a poster board about like criminal law. And then I
mhm,
was like, well, there goes a day. Like I'll never get that day back. But with the second time, I was like, screw the poster boards, screw the flashcards, and I started making like little roadmaps that
mhm,
I came up with this like on my own. This is not my tutor. This was not Themis. Themis originally gives you this thing called a roadmap. Like on the back of book, there's like mini roadmaps for each subject, and they're mostly for like essay purposes.
mhm,
But I created my own where I like if I did contracts, I would do like the different areas of it, like acceptance, consideration, all that in four
mhm,
different areas or whatever, and then put in all the little details, like by number and like bullets, like an outline. But it
mhm,
was it was like a if I needed something, like if the world was ending tomorrow, what do I need to know?
mhm.
That's what I need to know. And it was designed for me to help me in like my essays, but also in my MBEs.
Mhm.
Just a little bit, because I know MBEs are more detailed, but it was a little bit mixture of both. And I tried to keep those between 2 to 3 pages max on each of them. And because I'm a visual learner, it was faster than me doing a poster board because a
Yeah.
poster board, I have to sit there and write it out. And with a roadmap, I can just type it. But it's also designed with like I will literally put a box around, like
Yeah.
I'll do like a text box and type inside the text in the box so that it becomes a poster board.
Mhm.
And it had like little arrows going down or whatever. And that way it was like a poster board. So it helped me.
Yeah. I hear that a lot too from other repeat takers that they focus on a lot on like making the poster boards and flashcards, and that is very time consuming. I
Yeah.
think it depends how you engage with your study materials and, like you said, what works for you. Can you talk a little bit about like how it was like approaching your family after you didn't pass, and if that kind of made things worse or not really for you?
I think the first time I don't remember if I think I just texted my mom and I was like, I didn't pass. And that's it. And she's like, it's okay, like, there's always a next time. You'll get it next time. And I had already kind of walked her through like, hey, this is what this test is about. It's hard. Like most of the times people don't know, like they
Hmm.
think it's like a driving test, like you get a
Yeah.
permit or something. And it's like, no, it's not like that. So I kind of had talked to her about it. And then I told her about my friend who was already in his third try. And I was like, look, he's been at it for a year and a half now. I don't know how long I'll have to be at it. So when I told her that, she's like, it's okay, like it'll happen. And ironically, the time that I sat for it, my first time, the July one, my friend who had sat three times passed it.
Hmm.
So I told her like I didn't, but my friend did. And she was like, see, she was like, it's gonna happen for you too. Like, look at him where he was a year ago and look where it's gonna happen. So it wasn't like shame or anything. It was more of like I guess I did beat myself up for like a day,
Hmm.
but it wasn't more of like beating myself up because I knew I've done everything. Like
Hmm.
even going into it, like when I was done submitting the exam the first time, I was like, well, if this is not it, then I don't know what they want because I did all the work and all the time. Little
Hmm.
did I know I've done it wrong, but I wasn't beating myself up because I was like out and about and not putting in the time. But it was more of like a acknowledging, like, okay, this test beat my ass. It was hard. I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not like it was more like what can I do to learn? Clearly, there's something I'm not doing. And I need
Hmm.
somebody else to tell me that because I can't. It
Hmm.
was more like putting your ego aside and being like, okay, we need to realize that we need help.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. I was like, I can do it myself. I don't need
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a big it plays such a big part, especially like we were talking about earlier, the big mind fuck of like you get so high
Mhm.
and you just get through graduation, which is a huge accomplishment. And even though it's such a roller coaster of emotions sitting for the bar at that time, like our egos are really also high,
Yeah.
even if we don't want to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Yeah.
bar really humbles you.
And I think that's the part too that I've never been somebody with like a big ego that walks around like, oh, I'm the smartest one in the room. I'm always like, I don't know the answer, you know?
Hmm.
But it's like subconsciously we kind of create this ego throughout law school. And whether we like it or not, the day of the exam, it's there. And we're
Yeah.
like, well, I put in the work. I did all my poster boards and all my flashcards. Like, they better pass me, you know?
Hmm.
Like, screw it. I deserve this. I'm hungry for this and I'm here to get it. But
Yeah.
then you don't, because you're blinded by that, you don't realize that you were doing it wrong.
Hmm. For your study days, did you study about the same? Like, I know you went with whatever your tutor said, but were your days like about the same, longer, shorter?
Yeah, my days were pretty much, they were shorter than the first time.
Hmm.
In July, because it's summertime, the days are longer. So I was studying till like the sun went down, which was like 8. But in
Hmm.
February, the sun will go down like at 4:30.
Yeah,
So as soon as the sun will go down, it was like, well, it's time to stop now. Like
that's it.
4:30 to 5 every day.
Hmm.
And I had like set alarms on my phone. So I was treating it like a scheduled work, like
So you
9 to
had
5.
hard stops for yourself then?
Yeah, like 9 to 5. And it was kind of like my husband will come home from work at 5, or he will come like at 6 or 7. But it was like, oh, at 5 I'm gonna start cooking because
Hmm.
he's gonna get here like in 2 hours and then we're gonna have dinner. So that
Hmm.
was my thing, like my trigger call of like, oh shit, he's gonna get here, I'm gonna go cook now.
Hmm.
So that I will like get up, otherwise you're gonna get stuck there like, oh, I gotta do
Yeah.
it. And also my tutor had strict deadlines at 5 o'clock for essay submission, like 5 on the dot. So
Mhm.
I knew, like, as soon as I was done with that essay, I was like dead. I was so
Yeah.
exhausted that I didn't want to do anything anymore. So at 5 was I was like, I would wake up at 9, or I mean, studying at 9, and then by 5 I was done.
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds like he helped a lot with the accountability too in that
Yeah.
sense, like just having a tutor. Well, I mean, is there anything else like you want to add to that, whether someone's taking it for the first time or they're a repeat taker that you think can really help them?
I think we'll do whatever. I know you people say this a lot, like do whatever works for you.
So
And
I
it's
say,
right. And I was like, well, what does that work for me? Like,
yeah.
but as like funny as it might sound, when I was in law school my first year, because I went to school in Ohio. Like
Mhm.
I moved from the Bay Area and never moved in my life. Moved from the Bay Area to Ohio. And I went there for like my first year. And I was like super lonely and depressed. And it's your first year, like there's a lot of changes going on and new things that you gotta learn. So, and it was like all white people. So,
Yeah.
so I was like, it felt so excluded in many ways. But in a way for me to cope with like tunnel vision things, because I knew I was like, I had the tunnel vision in case, or because I want to pass and I want to get through this. So what I would do was I had like my laptop and I was like doing whatever my writing was. And then I had an iPad in the background where I would literally play like a novela that I watched
Oh my
10 years ago,
gosh. I
you
do the
know,
same thing.
10
That's
years
so
ago.
funny.
And it was like something that like I'm not really
Yeah.
interested in it, but I was like, whatever. It's just like, and I think they said this somewhere on like psychological exams that people that do that is because they don't want to feel lonely. They want to feel less
Mhm.
lonely because they feel comfortable with,
Mhm.
that piece of their life where once upon a time they watched a novela and they were comfortable sitting at home with their family,
Yeah,
you know?
that's so funny.
So I would play that in the background so I can have that sense of comfort and focus. Because if you're at peace, then you can work. So
Mhm.
that's what I would do with the bar. Like I was sitting in my bed, like I was studying in bed with the TV on in the background, very low, like
Yeah.
volume two or something. And I was like reading or whatever, doing my work, and then the novelas on the TV. Or I will play on YouTube music, like on my when I had to write essays. I will
Yeah.
be writing essays, but I will be playing like Spanish music, like Maná or things like that,
Yeah.
because somehow it make me feel like more at home. And I've never
Mhm.
been somebody to like listen to a lot of Spanish music, but because I did when I was studying, it made me feel more like it'll take me back to the time that I was like 13 years old
Yeah.
in high school, not studying for this test. It was
Mhm.
taking me there, and I had like a little mental escape from my reality,
Yeah.
and that helped fuel me to get through.
Yeah. I love that. That's so funny. I didn't know that that was also a thing for other people. Cause same, like I just put some random novellas in the background, and I think it's the same. It takes you to like that home comfort of like I know for me, like I watched it a bunch with my mom, so it's just
Mhm.
like that comfort. And then same for bar prep. I listen to music like low volume, and I think that that was really important. So it's like I love that because that's super unique, right, to you and what works for you.
Mhm.
And you like incorporated that. And I know I say that all the time, like do what works for you. And it's like, well, I can't tell you what works for you, but I just know that you have to do what works for you.
Mhm.
When it comes to reviewing, I know you mentioned that reviewing was key. Like did you do it differently? At least like when it came to the MBEs, or was anything different about your reviewing process?
I think I was putting all my reviewing in one document, which was the book, like the black letter book that my tutor gave me the
Mhm.
second time. He already gave me like a book with the outline and stuff, but sometimes you'll have MBE questions that like were not in the MBE book in the book. So I was like, oh, that's not in here. And obviously he's not gonna have everything in there. So I will
Mhm.
get whatever the topic and the answer was and put that in my outline. And by the time I was done, like my book had writing all over it. And the
Mhm.
first time it was like I learned something new. I will put it in a flashcard or on the poster board or on an outline on Word doc or on Excel sheet. Like I had 5 different things going on. And then when it came to reviewing, I was like, well, where do I start? You know? But with the book, it's like I literally have my book and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
There was one way to keep reviewing. And then I was also doing with Themis, I wanted to increase the number of questions that I was doing. And the number of questions that you do not go up if you do the same question twice. So like if you get it wrong and you do it again, you're still gonna be at 1701 just because you did 2 questions, but one was, like you redid the same question. So you're still at 1701. But I was so focused on that, reaching that number of completed questions that I was like, I'm not gonna do the incorrect ones again. I get it wrong, I'm gonna write it down and I'm gonna move on. But with the second time, I was like, screw that. Even if I get 900 questions, I'm gonna redo the ones that I did wrong so that at least I'm getting 900 solid questions that I know, like front and back. So I did that. The second time I reviewed, I would always do my batch of like incorrect answers, incorrect questions. I would do those. And I had like, I think I started with like 200, and by the time I was done, I was down to like 30 because I had done those so much.
Yeah. Was the MBEs you did, was that provided by your tutor or was that from like somewhere else?
That was from Themis. So Themis pairs up with one, forget the name. I forget their name, but Themis has like a question bank. I think it's like Uworld, I think I forgot. They have a question bank. And so when you don't pass, the Themis gives you like a second free try. So I did a second free try for my February bar with Themis, but I never logged in to Themis. I only logged into the question bank.
Oh, okay.
My tutor was like, you need to get your own question bank. You can get Adaptabar or you can get whoever you want. He's like, I don't recommend one over the other. It's just, to be honest, they're all the same. Just do whatever you want for that. But he was keeping me on, like he taught me how to how to read the questions differently, the MBE questions.
Yeah.
And he taught me how to read the answers, and like he basically taught me how to think differently. Like the way that you start law school, your first year or first semester, they teach you how to like think like logically and like all these different ways that you didn't think before. He did that for me with the bar. He's like, I'm gonna teach you how to think bar, not law school, bar. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like everything I wanted to cover. Like the main reason I wanted to talk was like, yes, for the tips, but also I really hope to like normalize having to retake the exam, especially when you just look at the pass rates, like they are so ridiculous that it's, and then still we're held and we hold ourselves up to like this really high standard. And I think it's just more about the exam than anything to do with lawyering. I mean, I don't know about you, but especially like me starting out this year too, I'm like, I don't know anything, but it's like, I guess the exam was useful for something.
I know it's true. Like right now that I was trying to give you examples, I'm like, I can't even remember like the different things that I know I passed, but I can't talk to you about it because I wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Do you mind sharing your like a contact info for anyone that like wants to reach out with more questions or well, yeah, thank you so much for your time, for just being open to like sharing all of this and your experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.